Professional editors will edit again all the time, just like really good writers will write all the time. And this constantly doing this work, either writing or editing in this case, makes you better at it. Just does. Practice may not make perfect, but it does make you better. So, and also a professional editor will automatically, at least should automatically, be taking it much more seriously and be willing to completely drag your magnificent masterpiece through the mud. They've got to. If they don't give you good, hard, vicious criticism, you aren't going to get better. You can be in the perfect headspace, you can have the ideas flowing like the waters of a mighty river, just out of your fingertips and onto the page. But if you aren't given the right ideas, if you aren't told where you're going wrong to begin with, you'll never figure it out on your own, because it all looks good to you. Until 3 years down the road, when you take a look at what you wrote 3 years ago, and you realize that it's all a bunch of bullshit. And a lot of that happens. I've written stuff in the past that, oh my dear Lord, I am not proud of. I wish I hadn't written it, really. But that's a silly thing to do, since if I hadn't written it, I wouldn't have had the experience to go on to write the stuff I'm writing now, which is infinitely better. And that's, what I want to be. Much better than I was before. And I hope 3 years from now I'm much better than I am now. Although I also hope that I'm doing pretty good right now. Now, the story I'm writing for National Novel Writing Month, to go off on a completely different subject, is not finished. 50,000 words is not the length of the story I'm writing. It's not a novella. It is an actual full-length novel. From what I can tell from what I've written and what the plan was for the story, I may be 1/3 of the way through it. Actually, I might be between 1/4 and 1/3 of the way through it. I'm not sure. But either way, I've got a long ways to go on this thing. And 50,000 words, while impressive, when done in a month, is not going to cut it. So, I'm going to keep writing this thing. I'm going to keep writing this story until it's done. I'm not going to be writing it at the same pace. I'm not going to try to do 50,000 words a month, every month, until it's done. That would just be, well, it'd be impressive, but it'd not be something I can do. I know friends, actually, who have done something similar, who have written entire full-length, like 200,000 words novels in the space of about 6 months. In fact, I wrote a 150,000 word novel in slightly less than 6 months, and I'm currently trying to get it published. But that was, again, I had a lot of free time on my hands, and not a lot distracting me at that point. This friend recently wrote her story. She's actually self-publishing it, and I'm going to certainly give a plug for her right here on this little watched vlog. So if you want to take a look at some nifty anime-inspired writing, then that's a book, a couple of books actually. She's written 2 so far, and she's working on a 3rd. Those are a couple of books to check out and support an artist. And I would absolutely recommend it. I mean, she's a very nice person, and her writing is very interesting in a lot of ways. But I was talking about my story. So, but I digress. The story I'm writing, I haven't even gotten a title for it. I can't think of anything good. I really can't. I had a bunch of different thoughts flow through my mind about it, and they're all just bullshit. They're just complete and utter boring story titles. I'll have to think of something interesting and something worthwhile later. I hope I'll be able to come up with it. But for now, I mean, whatever. Maybe I'll give more details out about it in a future vlog, and I can let my 4 watchers decide for me. Wouldn't that be just total fun? But as it is, no title, so it's just the current story I'm working on about fairies in New York. And yes, it's about fairies in New York. With no magic. Go figure. Still about fairies, though. And I have no title, but that's it. The story is as it is. I don't even have a working title, and that's kind of sad for me. I almost always have working titles for my stories. I tend to get attached to them and be very reluctant to let go of them, but they're not always good. And, well, it can hurt. It can hurt the chances of getting a story published if its title isn't decent. Though, a good story, if they can get beyond that. I'm hoping all my stories are good enough to get beyond that. I'm hoping. I mean, I think they're good enough to get beyond that, but I also think the titles are awesome. So, who knows where they really are. But, right now, again, I'm going to keep working on the story. As to the actual National Novel Writing Month, the experience was harrowing, was fun, thrilling. It was a kick in the pants. It was just a lot of good writing. Hey kitty, come on out. Once more, say hi to the camera. She's going to be leaving now. But she just can't leave me alone. Especially not while I'm talking to the internet. So, where was I? Right. I found it to be an interesting experience, and I really want to do it again next year. There is a few more things I wanted to talk about. One of them is the way that I wrote. So, I wrote the entire 50,000 words on my cute little netbook here. I love these things. They're, I don't know how much you can see, but they're just beautiful little things. They've got, for word processing at least, for what I'm doing, for writing. If you're a student, they're good for note-taking. They're just great to carry around with you. They're not anywhere near the bulky laptops. And I've had laptops. I've had a lot of laptops. I tend to make them melt. I don't know why. Don't ask me. I don't do anything wrong to them. They just eventually decide to overheat and die. And literally one time melt. But I don't want to get into that. Still wasn't my fault. They're tiny. If the keyboard is a little hard to get used to because of how small it is, how close the keys are together, especially if you're a quick typer, but not one of the traditional touch typers. I'm not really a touch typer. I do look at my fingers while I'm typing a lot, and I don't use the normal touch typing method. I'm very bad at that. I've tried to learn, but it's just I developed my typing style on my own. I've been using computers for the long time, and like I had an 8086 laptop. That's right, way back, pre-Pentium, lots of stuff. I had an 8086 laptop. It had no hard drive. It ran on floppy disks, but it had 640 kilobytes of memory, and that was hardcore for an 8086. I also had a 386 laptop. Man, I've had some pretty impressive computer technology over the years, and now I'm running around with a netbook, and the netbooks are just wonderful. It does everything I want it to do as a writer. Its screen can be a little eyesore inducing if you're not in a well-lit area, so be sure that you are if you're using one, or be sure that you don't use it for too long, because it will start hurting your eyes after a while, reading the small writing on the tiny but bright screen. the only real issue, like it plays the music, my music files, so that I have something to listen to while I write. It has a big enough hard drive to store practically anything I want on it, like movie files too, although I don't watch movies on my netbook. It just doesn't have the processing power to do a really good movie file. But like it's got all sorts of just nifty little, it's a good little computer for surfing the web to do research for writing, and for writing things down, and for like playing music, and just it does everything that I want it to do as a writer. As a gamer, no, it's no great shakes. I use my desktop for that, but it can go anywhere. Its battery life is actually pretty decent. I've got one of the extra size batteries on that one. The only really major problem with a netbook is that they get very hot. At least mine does. And I'm pretty sure all of them do. As you're running them, if you run them for very long, because they're so compact, and because they're of the way they're designed, any sort of laptop will get hot. But the netbooks get quite hot, and you don't notice it because they're tiny, but they output like a little tiny furnace. So when you're using them, if you're, for instance, a student taking notes on a netbook in an auditorium, or if you're writing with them, but you don't have a table to set them on in front of you, then you need something to put underneath them, something that will block the heat. Otherwise, you're going to cook yourself a little bit, and that's never a good thing.